across different regions. How do you see the sector evolving, and what are the kind of resource allocation, capital allocation decisions that you're taking as a group?
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and probably I will start with addressing the big picture, which is, as you stated, the security of supply and affordability, the issue of energy transition and sustainability. I think the challenge in this sector revolves around these three elements, and whatever decision that we need to make, we have to take in consideration how we can balance the three acts of this triangle. From Aramco side, at least, I can talk about what we are doing in terms of security of energy and affordability. We already announced that we will be at a 13 million maximum sustained capacity by 2026. We are adding 50% of our gas production, and more importantly, which is very relevant to this conference, is our ambition to convert 4 million barrels of crude to chemical. We call it the liquid to chemical program by 2030, of which 2 million barrels of crude will be done in Kingdom and 2 million will be out of Kingdom with partners all over the world. So this is a significant move to convert more oil to chemicals. Of course, we have new technology that we are looking at, thermal cracking and catalyst cracking, to bypass the refinery and impose on the, as you stated, the highest growth sector in the oil and gas, which is the petrochemical. So that is a very important and ambitious program that we are undertaking. In terms of energy transition, we are also expanding our business to introduce the hydrogen, the carbon capture, and also the plantation is part of our program. So in a nutshell, we are addressing these three elements in our business, and there is a lot of, even from the technology side, we just recently announced $1.5 billion fund focused on sustainability and technology so that we can deploy it in our business.
Thank you, Ibrahim, and let me see how that mirrors in an Indian context, many of the things you talked about. So let me go to Mr. Mehta from Reliance. You have said yourself strong aspirations on the downstream sector. You're very invested in the hydrocarbon space. You are also looking to increase your conversion, what Ibrahim was talking about, and also investing and looking at different technologies like crude to chemical. So at an overall level and more reflective.
To look at the future trends in refining and chemicals. In refining, we have to go either to biorefining or to crude oil to chemicals. Now, in refining, the average crude going to chemicals is around 10%. Now, the first generation integrated complex, they operate between 15 and 25%. The second generation, you may have missed my previous thing, but it doesn't matter. The second generation operates between 40 and 55%. But the real crude oil to chemical, or COTC, is roughly 60% and above. And our aspiration is to convert Jamnagar to a true COTC in the future with over 65% chemicals. So that's item one. It will be supplemented to a small extent with biorefining, but only to a small extent. Now, in the case of chemicals, the plan is to go for durable polymers. We believe chemicals are, advanced polymers will be the new materials of tomorrow, and we will require them for lightweighting, we will require them for membranes, we will require them for a lot of things in order to substitute the steel or other metals. And so in the case of the petrochemicals, carbon intensity, and the way to reduce the carbon intensity is improve the energy efficiency, B, maximum electrification, and especially in refining and petrochemicals, use hydrogen as a zero carbon fuel of choice in the future. So that is what we see is the road ahead for refining and petrochemicals.
Thank you, Mr. Mitra, and that brings me to Mr. Das, and from HMEL, and you are deeply invested in both the refining space as well as the petrochemical side of the business. Now, just listening to Mr. Ibrahim and Mr. Mitra, there is a certain theme that is playing out. That there is a traditional refinery and the product slate, and going forward, there is going to be a different product set and a market that is coming in. As HMEL, you have also made investments in crackers and you are already preparing for that future. So, two-part question. One is, as you look forward into your own refinery, the different investments in crackers that you're making, how do you see the product slate changing, and specifically your view on the petrochemical market in India? Do you see that playing out with adequate room for everybody? Do you see a supply-demand matching happening? That's one. And the second, the last one Mr. Mehta talked about, how are you thinking about the overall intensity of your operations, the carbon intensity of your operations and initiatives that you're taking to move towards more green? But maybe let's start with your view on the petrochemical and the product space.
Thank you, everyone. A lot of questions, simple answer. The crowd I see here shows that there is still a road ahead for refinery and petrochemicals. Honorable Prime Minister made a road very clear yesterday. We are 250, go to 450. Huge. So what we will do, what country will do. So let me come back. Currently, India uses 840 million ton of oil equivalent energy. 840 million ton, that's PPAC figure. IEA says it will go to 1,240 by 2070. You require 400 million ton of oil equivalent extra 7 years. It's a huge. Let me just give you an example of renewable. We are 120 gigawatt, and that is equivalent to 40-45 million ton of oil equivalent. Only. We are planning 500. It's a mega challenge for us. 500 by 2030. How much oil equivalent? 200. That's all, 240 million ton. Still, there is a lot of demand for oil. There is a lot of demand for oil in this country, and this will be fed by our refineries. So refineries roadmap very clear. No questions. Coming to petrochemicals. We consume 12 million ton polymer, polyethylene, polypropylene. We are the lowest per capita consumption of petrochemicals, 12 kg. World average is 30, US is 300. Growth is 7-8%. You require one mega scale petrochemical every year in this country, cracker every year in this country. What we are seeing is the whole world seeing. It's not that I'm saying something which is, which I have taken out from somewhere and very secret. It is there, known to everybody. And everybody is investing. Those who invest first will be the advantages. Those who will invest in India, they will have their own advantage. If you don't invest in India, somebody will invest somewhere else. The market is here. It's our call. How do we take advantage of this? So I'm sure that the crowd here is very confident that we shall do it in India. So that's part number one. The part number two, again, Prime Minister is very clear on carbon neutrality, 2070. Very clear. We have to be very clear ourselves. We know chapter number one, we know chapter last. How do we go about is the one which we have to set ourselves. And every company in this country is doing big, want to take lead and is taking lead. We have also taken lead in many sectors like biofuels and other items. But the point is, every country, every company has to decide on themselves what is the way forward. And I think, when this country thinks of something, plans something, it delivers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Das. You clearly have the room with you, and it's always refreshing to see the excitement with which you talk about the growth that India is going to witness in that sector. And that, let me come to Mr. Panikar from Nayara. And I have a feeling that you would also mirror the kind of sentiments that Mr. Das said, given the fact that you have very ambitious expansion plans on the refinery and the petrochemical side. And yet to pick your brain to go into the second level of that, how do you think this growth that is going to come with the expansion, how is that going to be different from what you have seen earlier? And what is your outlook for the domestic market, your export markets, and what differences, the changes that you bring in as you look at the expanding going forward?
Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, really appreciate this opportunity given by the organizers. After Prabhudas ji, anything we said which has some caution in it will not be appreciated. But I have only one feeling now. In the last 2 days of this seminar, we were listening to two things. One is huge growth on hydrocarbon and all forms of energy is going to happen. At the same time, we have to go for green initiatives, green fuel. That is a clear message given by the leadership also yesterday. So it is very clear that while I appreciate what Prabhudas ji said, we have to be cautious where we have to allocate the capital. That cautiousness, we should watch the global signal. I am not saying that India is a different story as he said, but we will get good signal from the global market. First of all, the trend is happening that people are willing to pay more for green products. This trend is going to be high. Assuming that somebody can make a product which has got lower carbon footprint, probably we will pay the food price. That trend, how much it will evolve is the first thing we have to see. Then you heard about the trade restrictions happening. To avoid the leak of carbon dioxide, some countries are going to impose a tax on low green fuel, which means that if our carbon intensity of the gas oil we make is having an intensity that may not be permitted in some other countries. Third is, of course, the policy. The policies are too tight. The positive policies of giving us some incentive to go for a lower carbon footprint and also some penalties like carbon tax. Very interesting case is happening in US. The inflation reduction bill. Huge support is being given for reducing the carbon footprint. At the same time, we have to look at how the technology is evolving. Can we make our refineries higher or lower carbon intense in the current context? Is the CCUs, the carbon capture technology that we are talking everywhere, is it actually economically sustainable? The green hydrogen, which has got a big hype now, how much is the cost of making green hydrogen? Have we got enough decarbonized power grid to ensure that we have got adequate quantity of green hydrogen? And green hydrogen may require almost 9 times water to make hydrogen. How we got? In the country we are constrained by water resources, then have we got adequate water to completely convert our hydrogen requirement or make hydrogen as a future fuel? Third is the bank and the funding facilities. Now you see that many banks, many lenders are not willing to fund high carbon intensive things. You might have read in the paper, even though the front from Aramco is very confident about huge growth, but we need fund to invest the capital. And last point, how the globe is really looking at these global warming issues. The green, are we serious? We are seeing from 90s about COP21, COP22, now we reach COP27, but carbon emission still increasing. Are we really serious about this? That the indication is that even though we are talking so many things, the policies are not being converted into executionable actions, except very, very small initiatives that we are doing in this. In this context, we have to see how India has to respond. But I fully agree with the Prabhas, the Indian story is different. India, 1/6 of the population, huge growth, multiple times of global growth is happening here. As you rightly put, we need all type of energies. It is not conventional energies. We need green energy, we need reliable energy, we need green hydrogen. So how to balance this is going to decide what type of configuration we have to do. In Nayara, when we are discussing about any type of investment, we have got, in addition to the capital part, we are also considering how in next 20 years, 25 years, the carbon number, the carbon emission index will play on the competitiveness. If we are convinced that the capacity expansion or petrochemical that is going to take place now, which will come on stream after 5 years, 6 years, it has to have a life of 25 years. This 25 years, it should get a return competitively so that we would be able to justify the investment. And we are very, very confident of the Indian story, and we are very sure that huge investment have to come in India, but those investments should not be simply a copying of the previous thing. We need to add additional factors of carbon capture technology, how to justify it economically. And one story, that ethanol story of India is a great success. So hydrogen hopefully will become a green hydrogen, will become a success story tomorrow. So then we have to integrate. So finally, the competitiveness would decide how much investment we have to do in the coming future. But huge demand is here in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Swami. And that sort of brings us to the place where we'll have to continue to grow, but likely the mode of growth could be different. And this brings us to the technology question. And if I can come to you, Shukla, about from EIL, you have a bird's eye view of the various different players in the segment to whom you are a technology provider and engineering solutions provider. How do you see this playing out in terms of the market sentiments and the investments that you're supporting in terms of the refineries and petrochemical expansion that you have seen in the past, and the kind of technological plays that are happening today, both in terms of the core of the refinery and the petrochemical side, but also attached to that, some of the points that Mr. Panika was talking about. Are you looking at investments beginning to come in on the green hydrogen side, on different technologies on the furnace side, or how do you see that playing out at a bird's eye view across the sector that is different from what you've seen in the past?
Thank you, Anirban. It's absolutely the right time to make decisions and accelerate the investments in refinery and petrochemicals. This is a cycle which is on the upward, and in particular for India. We have seen Honorable Prime Minister mention a number which is 450 million tons of crude refining capacity. That capacity is not just refining, but it is integrated with petrochemicals. To get the right margins in place, to get the right product mix, to be a leading player not just in India, but also be a leading player in not just petrochemical, but niche petrochemicals at a global level. with global competitiveness, this is the order of the day. And I quite agree that if it is not now, it will be too late. Essentially because these projects have a gestation period and they are mega projects. They run into 10 to 20 billion dollar worth of investment. They need a lot of due diligence from the stakeholders. They need a lot of best-in-class technologies. They need a lot of technologies which will sustain the future of our enterprises in terms of greening their operations, in lowering their carbon footprints. So the time is right now to take decisions, do the product slate, do the feasibilities to kind of get on the ground level to implement. I will touch upon some of the technologies in the sense that some of the petrochemical technologies are challenged by way of availability on globally, and that is definitely the leverage that the nation has today and our enterprises, our organizations have today to come on the forefront on a global arena to negotiate not just the supply of technology but also matters of trade, matters of sharing products, and working out these agreements either in joint venture mode or SPV modes to actually overcome the barrier of these niche technologies coming into India. If you just see the monomer gap in demand and supply, and if you look at some numbers in 2030, which I must say we're sitting in 2023. 2030 is not very far away. If we don't take decisions today, we will be at no position of strength when we see ourselves 7 years hence. And let me just throw you some numbers. If you look at the gap of just the monomer of ethylene, it's expected to be 5 million tons. And if you see propylene, it is something like 3 million tons. So there is huge room, despite the investments that have happened already and which are on the table, to actually put in together, configurations. And at this point, I would like to share that the feedstocks of petrochemicals are more deep now as they were some years ago. We were only looking at molecules derived from the refinery streams for petrochemical, but today when we see refinery and petrochemical, we see a lot of other molecules. When we talk of LPG imports, we talk of ethane imports, and those actually open up a long kind of a platform for negotiation of a long-term tie-up sourcing, which will actually bring that feedstock stability to the petrochemicals. Looking at moving forward, looking at best-in-class technologies, looking at low-hanging fruits to reduce the carbon footprint, to reduce the energy consumption in the existing assets, to look at state-of-the-art technologies. We are now looking at evaluation of some technologies where the role of energy is playing a lot more than it was before. So the price that we tag to the footprint of carbon is much beyond that we used to do before. So this is the trend. So the technology players also have to gear in to bring in that class of technologies in the Indian market so that India can adopt them, and in the larger goal of the net zero that the Honorable Prime Minister has set forth for us, we can be, accelerate our pace towards that. There is, yes, a lot of space that we see in future in green hydrogen as well. We are also working with a lot of companies, our own sister companies and other private sector companies as well on green hydrogen. Among the other studies that we're doing for a lot of petrochemical addition, and I really hope that they accelerate in pace and the decision-making process is faster.
Thank you. And this maybe is a time to change that and do a bit of future gazing. We have to achieve a lot, that we can't stop growing, we have to keep producing oil and gas, hydrocarbons, refining products and petrochemical. And at the same time, we have to stay true to the sustainability agenda and achieve the energy efficiencies and the net zero. So what is the refinery of the future is going to look like? And Brian, if I can come back to you, as Aramco, you have traversed part of the journey. You have looked across the board on reducing your carbon emission footprint. You're looking at energy efficiency. You've made investments. You have a $15 billion fund which is looking at low carbon technologies. You are looking at carbon capture as a solution, green hydrogen and all other colors of hydrogen. So as you have traversed this journey, and the point that Shukla also raised is that the big question comes is that how do you make an investment decision on some of the technology that is still either not fully at scale, or there are some elements of it which is still not fully answered, either commercially or availability wise. So as you have looked at developing a portfolio and you are now moving towards your 2050 net zero target, how do you see these different elements coming in, especially from a central planning and resource allocation perspective? How do you make all these parts meet in the journey till 2050?
Answer the question in two parts. The first part is how the new generation of refineries or the integrated refinery chemical look like. Our plans that going to build the 4 million barrel per day liquid to chemical is basically bypassing the refinery. The technology coming up front with the crude is splitting the crude with the technology to go to feedstock to the chemical. So it's not, I will say, a chemical, a refinery integrated with the chemical. It's more bypassing the refinery sector. Now, doing that, of course, requires a lot of technology, efficiency, reducing your emissions, and you need to couple that with carbon capture. I think it's very important for any investment. They have to build the technology that will enable them to be a carbon neutral in the future. I think one of the things that we are doing is we are investing in carbon capture facility that will be able to capture around 9 million tons per annum by 2027. And that is leveraging our resources, and we have a huge sink that we can collect carbon and would inject it back on these sinks. And by 2035, will be around 40 million tons per annum of carbon capturing. So these are very important, and I think the challenge that we have today is how we can drive the cost curve down. And that will hinges on how we can leverage the existing technology or investing in a new technology that have a promise. You scale it, you take it as a pilot and then scale it up. And this is where we see the evolution in reducing costs. And if I can take the analogy of the solar business. Solar business was extremely expensive 10 years ago. And today it is really very affordable. So the affordability of these solutions has to be also part of the equation that we are solving for. So I think as we go forward, we have to put this consideration in our way we design this facility to sit and fit the future of our clients.
Thank you, ma'am. And if I can bring that into few parts, and I'll come to Mr. Mehta from a Reliance perspective, that there are some future bets that you will take, and I'll just reflect back on Brian's point about bypassing the refinery. And that is a technological bet that you have also spoken about. We talked about the 1G, 2G, 3G refinery, and these are some bold bets that you might have to take. But at the same time, you have to hedge or protect your core business interests in terms of the returns to the shareholder and your returns that you make. And as part of that large investment group that you are, how do you look at balancing the two in terms of making the bet so that you are future-proofing your business, staying ahead of the curve on technology, and at the same time you are making sure that you are hedging and protecting your core business and returns?
I think what we are looking for is we are an energy major today, and we want to be an energy major in 2050. We want to get into new energy areas which include solar photovoltaics, batteries, for grid stabilization, electrolyzer for green hydrogen, and fuel cell to basically substitute all the diesel generator sets in India. Now all of this they are in the new energy business. However, they have been configured in order to help our existing legacy business. How? Now I said that in future we have to go to electrification of refineries and petrochemicals. Steam will be a bad word, and we want to minimize or possibly eliminate steam. So if we have to go for electrification, the plan is we will supply the solar photovoltaic, and a part of that solar power we will be captive consumer in our own refinery and petrochemical plants. Now, solar power unfortunately doesn't shine during the night, and we have to run the refinery and petrochemical plants 24/7. So we are also looking at energy storage or battery so that we can supply 24/7 power to our hydrocarbon facilities. Now, even if we electrify everything, unfortunately, refineries and petrochemicals, they are hard to abate emissions. And for that, we are also getting into the green hydrogen business. In other words, we will supply electrolyzer to support the ecosystem of green hydrogen in India. And a part of that green hydrogen, the plan is we will become captive consumers in order that we go from refinery fuel gas or imported LNG to a future of hydrogen as an internal fuel in the fire heaters. So what we are saying is we are making investments which will not only will promote sustainability in India, but also ensure sustainability of our existing refining and petrochemicals business.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta, and Mr. Das, your thoughts on some of the points that got talked about. I know you are looking at biofuels, for example. How do you see your participation in that value chain across the sustainability part of the energy transition within refinery that is playing out across green hydrogen, biofuels, element of electrification? Which ones of those you would be more bullish about and want to participate in it as an extension into the value chain as well?
Thank you. Again, I will take help from our Honorable Prime Minister vision on biofuel. E10 done, E20 being done, and we are talking E85. So that's the vision of the country, and each one of us, each of the person in this room and outside is working on biofuel. And we are also part of it. We are also setting up a bioethanol plant. More the better. Because currently country uses 20 million ton of petrol. 22 million ton. E20 means 4 million ton. That's not good enough. We import 250 million ton of crude. 4 million ton is not good enough. We got to go to E40, E50, E85. We are also talking of biodiesel. So the country is also trying biodiesel. Huge demand, huge opportunity, go for it. And we are going for it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Pandikar, your thoughts on the similar thing, that of the different new energies, so to say, that are coming up. Which one would you be more bullish about?
I fully agree with what Raji and Prabhasji said. The future refinery is going to look different. That is a fact. Even though we are saying that we need another 200 million ton of capacity is all fine, but it is not going to be the same type of refinery. First is the product pattern, the type of product that we have to make will change. There are reports saying that 1/3 will be for road mobility, 1/3 will be for aviation, and 1/3 will be for petrochemicals. So what we have to do for a future refinery, and what Prabhasji said, we first have to configure in a flexible way, so we should be able to adapt very fast to the market changes. Second, as he rightly put, we have to look and integrate the refineries with the green fuels, including aviation carbon fuel. As Bhadraji said, how we can integrate this hydrogen, grey hydrogen with the refinery, so that future when hydrogen economy grows, we would be able to adapt very fast. And third, of course, is actually a decarbonized grid. How we can reduce the carbon emission in the refining process itself. Even though refinery as such is not a high emitter, still it is around 3 to 4% of the carbon dioxide emission. Why it is not high? Because there are industries like steel and cement which emits per capita more. But still we are also, refinery also is a scope 1 emitter. How we can reduce that, like he said, electrification, then all type of green fuel internal purposes also. That is exactly what I am saying, that as we move forward, while we need capacity, energy for India, we have to be fully conscious that the future market is going to be different from what we have seen in the last 20 years. So that should be the thing. When we are building new refineries, we should be conscious of that part. In addition to the design, this emission intensity has to be part of the design, so that we would be able to achieve at a lower cost, a low carbon, if we are doing right at the design stage. That is it.
Thank you, Mr. Pandikar. My time is up, but I'll have just one last question to you, Shukla, is that as the technology provider, the new refineries will have to build in a lot more efficiency, lot less emission per barrel than what we have seen earlier. In the near term, and let's say either ongoing or in the next few years, which are a few of the technology products, either on the energy efficiency side or on the digital solution side, that you feel are going to be materially embedded in the refineries of the future that are going to come up?
Thank you. I'm happy to address it.
Your mic.
Is this more audible? Yeah, okay. So I'll be happy to address it. In fact, we have positioned EIL very strategically for the future. Having just completed our prestigious client HMEL's cracker complex, we have in the last year and a half positioned ourselves very well in terms of alliances, both in the global arena as well as domestic alliances. We have technologies to provide for the biojet with our partners CSIR, IIP. We have our technology for providing 2G ethanol, state-of-the-art units with our partner from Finland, Kempolis. We have now in-house competency and capability to handle hydrogen both in the pipeline as well as put up plants which produce green hydrogen by using electrolyzer technology. We are there in this position by virtue of our capability and competency which we built in setting up the oil and gas sector, and we are there for the not only the domestic arena, but we are also a very strong global player today in the conventional as well as in the renewable energy space.
Thank you, Shukla. With that we'll wrap up the session. And thank you so much for Mr. Das's expression of the bullishness with which we are going about our expansion and the growth and the technology that are available. This feels like a really exciting place to watch going forward. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much, Anirban. And again, a great panel there really looking at what's happening on the downstream. And when, again, we look at what's happening on the downstream, it is so essential indeed.